Development Committee meeting, 14th of June 2021. Welcome to councillors who are attending physically and virtually. Welcome to the staff that are here this evening and members of the public who are here to present, participate and also enjoy this meeting while they are watching and eating dinner at home. A call for apologies. We've received one from Kaiwhakahaere Matchwork and His Worship the Mayor. Do we have any other apologies for this meeting? There being no apologies, further apologies, sorry, I ask that someone move that the apologies from Kaiwhakahaere Matchwork and His Worship the Mayor be received and accepted. Moved Councillor Neal. Seconded Councillor Cogan. I'll put the resolution, those against. The resolution is carried unanimously. We move through to the declarations of interest. That is circulated electronically on Microsoft Teams as well as physically. If you have an interest, can you please make that update on the interest register if necessary, and also let it be known at the time the agenda item is discussed. Moving through to the third agenda item, which is urgent items not on the agenda, and I ask the Chief Executive, are there any urgent items? Thank you very much. There being none, we move through to the minutes of the previous meeting. The minutes of the previous meeting have been circulated to councillors and committee members separately via Microsoft Teams. They have been read and errors of fact and corrections have been called for. None have been received. Ask that a councillor please move that the minutes of the Community Development Committee meeting held the 8th of March 2021 be confirmed as a true and correct record of the meeting held. Someone who was present at that meeting.
Yes, I'm happy to.
Moved Councillor Cogan. Seconded.
I don't think I was at the meeting.
I will second the resolution. Put the motion. Those against? It's carried unanimously. Thank you. And we also move now to receive. Just to clarify, are we receiving or resolving that these are true and correct? Both. We're acting in lieu of that committee now that it's disestablished. Okay, thank you. So the final minutes of the Parks, Reserves and Environment Subcommittee held the 14th of April. I was present and can move that they are true and accurate record of the meeting held. Someone prepared to support that, although it's noted that it's not expected that all members of this committee were at that because it was a subcommittee. So we move that we receive those minutes. Resolve that they're true and accurate record. Councillor Neal seconded. Put the resolution. Any councillors against? It's carried unanimously. And I can confirm for both the ordinary Community Development Committee minutes and the Parks, Reserves and Environment Committee meeting minutes that my digital signature be added to confirm meetings of the Community Development Committee meeting held on 8th March 2021 and the Parks, Reserves and Environment Subcommittee meeting held on 14th of April 2021. Right, we're 4 minutes into the agenda and it's felt like I've spoken for most of the meeting. So I'll hand over to our staff. The action list is the 5th agenda item. It's on pages 4 through 5 of your agenda, and I welcome Te Aroha Cook, Regulatory and Community Manager, Regulatory Services and Community Manager. How does that roll off the tongue?
Rolls well, thank you. Good evening, Chair and Councillors. I will speak to items 1, 5 and 6 and then pass the mantle across to the planning. So in terms of item 1, the Puketika Museum Governance Group, as the committee will recall, there was a request for this progress back prior to the museum being under the governance and management structure of council. With the appointment of the museum director, we are reassessing what the requirements for this will be, and as we've mentioned at previous meetings as well, the priority has been to put the LTV consultation to bed, and then be able to workshop the council in terms of what the future direction will be in terms of whether it's a governance structure or some other form of structure in terms of the museum, or as part of item 5, which was then collapsing the two potentially into just one item. And that was around the expression of interest for the workshop in terms of the cultural and heritage subcommittee. So that's the intent, is to bring those two items back to the workshop at council and then just determine exactly what sort of structure do we want in place, if any, and then what are the objectives and the outcomes of such a structure being in place. Any questions on the governance group / culture and heritage subcommittee?
Not a question, but a comment. I think it's really good that we have the museum director speaking at this meeting, and I wonder, without needing to set up an additional governance group, whether in fact this committee can act in that capacity.
And that is one of those things that we're looking at. So that's the intent, to have the workshop against what council originally were trying to achieve, and it's still being run in arm's length through Destination Westland and having oversight. Or in terms of it now being a function within council, we have direct oversight, but we still need to have that workshop.
And my only other comment is in relation to our other museum being the Western Industrial Heritage Park, and I guess that also captures what you were saying around heritage and culture more generally. And we also have a presentation tonight from Jackie Gurdon on the Culture and Heritage Tourism Project, so it's kind of layers to this. And I wonder if this community development committee team can actually act as a conduit for all of these heritage and culture related matters.
And in terms of the, well, not part of the action list, in terms of the museum directors present in this meeting, it is intended that that report will be a standard report for meetings of this committee, so that every time we meet, it will get updated. So in terms of item 6, which is around the Kumara Resident Trust funding options and the endowment fund, we are waiting on them having a meeting at the end of this month to then come back to us with a copy of resolutions from that meeting and how they would like funds expended, and then for a paper for Sarah to bring back to the next meeting of either this committee or council to approve the release of those funds. So it's as far as I've got that. No questions?
Yeah, I do on that one, because I went along to the recent Kumara KRT meeting, and we were talking about that, but at this point what they're doing is they have to sending out a tender process to actually get some of the pricing done, so it may be some time still yet before that will come back in, and then once they've worked out how much that initial portion is going to cost, then they'll go and do a scope of work on the rest of what needs to be done, and hopefully a plan from there around what it will cost for completion of the work. So yeah, I can't see that coming back by the end of this month.
It wasn't that it was coming back, it's more the fact that they were having another meeting at the end of the month from an email received from Julie. Yeah. Because they had another date and they've had to postpone it to the end of this month in terms of having that chat, and they're working out what they need to price.
Just through the chair, Councillor Cogan asked if council can support them in tender process, and I provisionally said that I support them in their capacity to get this project moving, mainly because it's been stalled for so long. But we do need some prices back to make sure that that's ballpark of what they're trying to do in terms of that.
So let's just put that matter to, let's address it in two parts. Can we just flip back to we've actually got in the action list, the Hokitika Museum Governance Group, then the Culture and Heritage Subcommittee, so first and second item, and then we've got the fifth item being the expressions of interest in the workshop. Can we collapse all that into one item with a clear action being that following the adoption of the long-term plan, heritage, culture, tourism be workshopped with the council to establish the correct reporting and oversight mechanisms for these projects and functions going forward.
Yeah, support that.
And we're happy with that, committee, staff are happy with that, yep, cool. Right, let's deal secondly with what Jenny and Simon and TC were just referring to with the KRT. So the recommendation as put here is, the update, sorry, is once received, a report will be provided to council. Is there any further amendments needed to this in terms of direction to staff, Councillor Cogan?
So the other thing that I'm confused about, so my understanding is I'm taking a lead on this, working with the KRT group, but is the Community Development Officer, Sarah, also having the same conversations?
The community development officer, that's where it originally started, but in terms of the community development officer, that's a process that will be led by council and the need then going for wider consultation. Because once the pricing comes back, then we're still required to consult with the community as a whole.
Yep.
In terms of impact, it's that just Kumara, not the whole district, because obviously it's the funds for the Kumara as the trust side. So that's the bit that Sarah will then lead in terms of pulling that together, paper to council to say yes, go out and consult, then bringing back any submissions to the council to consider before council make a decision on funding.
Yeah, and that's fine. I just didn't know whether I should have been communicating with you and Sarah when I'm going along and having these.
So obviously as councillors, you encourage you to attend all the community meetings and provide any information back through. I forwarded it to Sarah anyway, just so she's aware of it.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, that update stands plus an additional aspect that they are awaiting tender prices to be received, which will provide indicative costs at that point.
No, they're going through a process of getting a tender application done with the assistance of council.
We're actually talking about establishing a tender,
yes,
tender structure rather than we're not ready to press go.
There were two parties. Basically, there were two parties last year in June that they wanted as their preferred ones for this engineering work to be done. Neither of them have come back to them.
Okay.
So they've now gone back to them and said, well, you've got 2 weeks to come back with your prices. Otherwise it's going out for tender because we've waited too long. Council have now offered to, well, they've asked if council can just assist them with writing up a tender document to then make the tender go public to then get prices in. Because until that price comes in, there will be no further work done, and scope of work done on what else can be done.
So should we clarify and update that so at least formally it's recognised that council is assisting with the tender process?
You can take that as a given because we're not going to get heavily involved. We're just going to provide them direction and template. Just there is a piece missing. They have to confirm funding before they go out for tenders. Because the last thing anyone wants to do is price something that could go to another party. So there's a whole workaround in terms of for them to establish who they're going to be asking for pricing first, and then asking council for funding, because they can't put a tender out there not having the funds to go and actually pay for it.
No, that's right. Yeah, but Fiona was going to communicate with you at council to know that process. Yeah.
Clear as it can be at this moment.
Yeah.
And we'll just make sure that because it's on the action list, we've got a standing discussion point at each community development committee meeting.
Yeah.
Thank you. Right, so we've dealt with 1, 2, and 4 and 5. Now, for some reason, we're talking 3 agenda items which are all signage related. So, kia ora, welcome, Fiona.
Signage. So I have been in conversations with Destination Hope, so all of the signage related actions relate to Destination Hope. We have been in constant contact around what's happening. It has been stalled around looking at budgets and then confirming their plan. The current situation is that there has been an application made for TIP funding, so we're waiting them to come back to us when they've found out whether they've received that, and there's also conversations being undertaken with the Department of Conservation around potential signage out at Mahinapua.
So there's a third item there, which is the NZTA signage on the highway. So we have written a letter to NZTA quite some time ago. No feedback has come back. The current regional director for NZTA has now left his position. There's a new one appointed as of today. We will invite them back in either July or August to give council an update.
Okay, so that's great, thanks for the update. So let's just clarify, because you seem to talk signage a lot. First relates to the directional wayfinders throughout the CBD. They have gone with council's blessing for a TIF, Tourism Infrastructure Funding application, which I assume covers things like resource consenting fees, physical on-site works, and that's gone into
For the price that they indicate.
for the prices they indicated, right? So that's like in a process. Hopefully that process is successful. Then we have the signage relating to the approaches to the township and the gorge directional signage. Is that included in the TIF funding?
No. So the TIF funding application was linked to the beachfront upgrade stage 2.
Okay,
Which we included the wayfinding as part of that over a total package.
Yep.
So we just kept it, I could take a CBD related.
okay. Okay,
So there's no funding application for directional work for Haast Hall or entrance to town.
okay. So that it's not a problem we can solve here, but it's something to give consideration to committee members that it's been discussed for a long time. Where are we at with that? From Destination Hokitik's perspective, where are we at with the gorge directional signage out to the gorges? Is that something they'll come back to and said?
Not at this stage,
So it's kind of a pause.
which was with regard to funding, I believe.
Which is all probably related to the budget, which is related to the long-term plan, which is related to the economic climate, asking for more money at this time, all those sorts of factors, right?
You'd have to clarify that, please, sorry.
Okay, it's just something that, like if we're putting in a resource consent application, it would make sense to capture the whole lot at once, wouldn't it? We were doing any
No,
signage.
they're all specifically different, particularly the along the state highway. They're really different from central CBD.
Town centre zone definitely has its own.
At the moment,
Yeah,
it does,
I guess.
yeah. Until the district plan becomes over it. And they won't need a consent. Okay, right, let's ensure we flag that tomorrow, councillors, at the LTP workshop, or not LTP workshop, at the LTP discussions. And the third, Fiona, before you leave, is the transit. I know you probably can actually, yes, we're talking some. So these transit signs, or Wakatotari signs, I just happened to notice them today, particularly the Welcome to Hokitika J Country one is just so covered in moss, and the reflectiveness of the sign is lost. So that's one example. I'm sure we could find many. How do we actually make this happen? Because obviously NZTA, Wakatotari's budgets have all been slashed. They've got to find.
Just to highlight to councillors, so we put a budget forward as part of I suppose the West Coast rationale group led that project for us. Our budget was about a 3% increase on last 3 years worth of funding, and it's come back after I suppose calibration across all of the national district plans at a reduction of 13%. This is 13% across the maintenance budget for highways. So that's quite dramatic in terms of what we can and can't afford. That obviously leads on to the state highway contract and how that will be divvied up and what the focus areas are. There's a lot of priorities out there, and there are standards that NZTA must comply to, particularly when it comes to signage. I don't know what those signage criteria actually are, but we don't have the capability to measure them from a distance either. So I assume that there are some that would be marginal in terms of their standard right now. It's about discussing it with them directly, one-on-one.
Or soaring them down.
We can't do that. So, like I said, I think we just re-invite them, particularly with the new regional lead, and see what his stance is.
Yeah.
Very tough position to be in. For Hogan, who execute the project, obviously oversee that budget.
That's right, yeah.
So they're in a tough position as well, trying to maintain it.
Yeah. So are we happy with that update in terms of action being that we ask the Chief Executive to make contact with the new regional manager and is that the title?
Regional director.
Yeah, the new person and Tahi to advance that. And we also, just for interest, have it circulated to councillors, rough breakdown of what's sort of anticipated with the directional and gorge signage in terms of budget, what we put in for the TIF.
Oh yeah, so not the gorge budget didn't go.
Yeah, no, I don't even know if there is a gorge budget, is there?
No, we didn't apply for that one. I can dig that out.
Because we'll need a backup plan. Won't we?
Or not do it.
Or not do it at the expense of not doing it.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any questions from councillors? And welcome, Councillor Davidson. Great to have you on board.
Sorry about the lateness, guys.
It's all right. Well, I'll move that your apology for lateness be accepted. And seconded, Councillor Neil. All those in favour?
Aye.
Those against? Thank you. The action list is received with thanks, moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Neil. Is there anyone against the proposed resolution? No, carried unanimously. Thank you very much. Thanks, staff. That's really appreciated. And hopefully we can knock some of those things over in the near future. Presentations. It's my pleasure to welcome Claire Brown, the Regional Manager for Emergency Management and Natural Hazards, and her sidekick, outsider, our Westland Red, Lauren Emmanuel, to address us. Don't know if that's your correct job description. Our Westland sidekick, Batman and Robin, Batman, yeah, gonna happen.
Kia ora koutou katoa. Kanoiti mahi kia koutou. So my name's Claire Brown, and I want to thank the committee for inviting a presentation today. I just want to talk just very briefly about my role and then a bit about what we hope to cover off in the presentation. So I'm the Regional Director for Civil Defence Emergency Management and Natural Hazards, a very long title for the region. So I have a team of 5 people who are based in each of the district councils and 2 people based in the regional council. So my mandate is to work with the National Emergency Management Agency, who we're referred to as the Ministry for Civil Defence, in terms of helping us be prepared as best that we can and able to respond as effectively as we can and recover from an event. An event could be anything from a natural hazard. We're all very accustomed to the events such as flooding for the region, but also to other events such as a human pandemic as we've experienced last year. So the presentation today, I just want to take you through some very high level discussion points around resilience. So the topic of this evening's presentation. So I've got some high level context to give you and talk a little bit more about the specific activities that are happening for our region and particularly for Westland District. For that, with the chair's permission, I'd like to invite Lauren to come and talk in more detail about the aspects that she's been working on a day-by-day basis to help support the district. So in terms of the presentation, we'll just move through these next few slides relatively quick. Oh, that is right. Okay. Okay, so this is just a very high level picture just to explain a little bit more about what we mean when we talk about resilience. So it's a word that's been bandied about a lot, and so from our perspective in terms of emergency management, it's a very broad overarching concept around social resilience, cultural resilience, economic resilience around the built environment and our natural environment, and it's also about our layers of governance. The circles, the half circles at the end just also indicate that it goes within all the tiers of our community. So it's what happens with our whānau in our homes and also in our communities, and on and on. So I just wanted to make the point here that we have groups in our districts. We've got the Safer Westland group, who are a pivotal group, network of agencies that particularly look at that third half circle around resilient communities and tapu. So just moving through, again, they're quite high level. I like this slide. All it is to demonstrate is that what we're trying to achieve in terms of resilient communities is that we have a much quicker way to respond and recover after an event. So it's about having a common collective purpose and understanding. So prior to doing resilient work, we may have a number of quite disparate aspects around response and recovery, and what our goal is to have that much more aligned, and then the idea is that we're much more efficient and effective in terms of our response. Again, a fairly simplistic slide to demonstrate that. This slide here is about why. So we receive a number of dividends out of having communities that have stronger resilience locked in. So the first objective, the first dividend of resilience is about saving lives and reducing infrastructure damage and reducing economic losses, and I'm sure we've all have a number of examples where we can refer to that first objective. The second dividend of resilience is more around economic development, so we're encouraging households to save and build assets. We're promoting entrepreneurship, stimulating businesses to invest and innovate. So again, with the COVID examples, that we understand the importance of sectors such as our tourism industry, having an ability to think early on in terms of what that impact on their economy might be and how they might shift and adapt. We've seen a tourism forum quite recently happen in Queenstown, and a big emphasis of that was around how the sector can build resilience. The third dividend, beyond increasing resilience, disaster risk management investment also yields positive social, cultural and environmental side benefits. So there's a whole host of other value that our communities get out of being more resilient. Their social capital builds, they become a stronger networked community. So just some high level slides there. The next one I won't spend too much time on. So the blue line at the bottom is what our typical response and recovery journey might look like. So this is about improving that. So it's lifting that line up so that the impact is felt not so deeply, that we recover
more quickly, and then we have a stronger post-event community. So again, nothing rocket science there, but I think it does a good job to demonstrate the importance of building resilience. Okay, so just moving through, I might actually jump into the next presentation if that's okay with Megan. Okay, so just a couple more slides from me, and then I'll hand over to Lauren to talk a little bit more detail about activities here for the Westland district. Okay, thank you. Okay, so this slide here, we refer to this as the 4 R's. So emergency management focuses our activities on each of these 4 R's. So again, it's a fairly simplistic way to describe the need for us to mitigate risk. So that's around reduction. The need for us to help our communities and the sector be prepared. So around planning, so that's about being ready. And then obviously when an event does happen, how we come together and respond to that event. And then afterwards, what happens in the long tail of recovery? And then again, after recovery, how do we reduce the impact of that particular event happening again? So it goes round in circles. So we talk about now about resilience. So we talk about resilience as being all of that put together. So at a national level, we have the National Disaster Resilience Strategy. So that's the copy, that's the picture of the cover of that. A really good capture document. I think it's quite a good document to read, well put together. So again, it's a couple of years old now, but it does emphasise the importance of not only what happens in response, but the benefit of having a community and the sector much more resilient. Just touch on this next slide very briefly. So why? So we've got obvious risk profiles for the region, and one of our higher risk is referencing our alpine cold. So, so just want to put a plug in for the Project AFA presentations that have been underway for a number of years across the region, and we had a very good turnout for the last presentation that we had a couple of months ago in Kokatahi. And there'll be another presentation, range of presentations that will come in July and Greymountain. Okay, what I might do now is invite, with the chair's permission, invite Lauren to come up and take us through slides just to show the other range of activities that are happening around resilience, and then I'll just finish off with the slide at the end of the time.
Come on up.
Come on.
Thanks, Claire.
Kia ora koutou. Thank you, Claire, for putting that context in there. I just want to go through some resilience projects we've got happening here in Westland. At the top, something I've been wanting to happen for a while. We've managed to get some funding through Mayoral Task Force for Jobs, and we're looking at the number of tsunami signs we need, tsunami alert signs. We're using a GPS program, so visiting sites where people can get access to our watercourses. So that's our rivers, our lakes, particularly our lake mouths, and our river mouths, and our seafronts. There's some photos to follow through. The development of a standalone EOC at the airport. Currently, the Chambers converts to an EOC, so that's one of our big resilience projects. We've just managed to deliver the first of our community emergency containers in Haast, and they'll be followed up by Franz Fox and Audit and Orifo by mid-July. We've had some resilience projects around water tanks. We've had 3 new tanks go into Haast, funded by the community. So those tanks also double as being available for the fire service, and they've got various adaptations on them that make them flexible in an emergency. And of course, our generators to run our welfare centres and to support communities in emergencies. So some of those generators have come through the Community Capability and Resilience Fund. Some of them have been self-funded, and we've just currently got a range of communities applying for the Lottery Community Grant, which opens on the 6th of July. And we also have our 12 community response groups. And fortunately, we've just had some resilience research occur in Hokitika. So that's our tsunami sign, obviously, and Jesper on the right, you can't see that very well, but he's at Haast Beach and the sign's pointing to the beach. Lots of picnic tables and the motel, service station and food outlets, and no tsunami signage there. And the far picture is down near Jackson's, where there's multiple entrances into the seafront area there. So he's got 5 weeks funded by the Mayoral Task Force for Jobs. And at the end of that time, we will be able to overlay the tsunami modelling map and the map of all the GPS points and work out exactly how many signs we need and where the best positioning for those signs will be. Haast Hall, that's the first of our community resilience containers there. And on the right, one of the 30,000 litre resilience tanks. And of course the Haast Hall will have the Provincial Growth Fund building strengthening and refurbishment, which will allow it to work in with the container and the water supply and be a good welfare resource for Haast. Just pointing out some of our resilient design. We don't have to prepare the base where the containers go, because it's sitting on a ground screw, and that ground screw's got a base isolator on it, which means that in a earthquake, the container will be as stable as possible. It also means that the container can be quickly removed and repositioned as we require elsewhere. That's a tank at Okuru, just showing the fire hydrant there. Okuru will be a secondary welfare centre in the Haast area. And this is the Fox generator, which came out. They were successful in getting funding through the Resilience Fund for that. So now their emergency centre and hall has got that strengthening of the generator there. Okay, that's last Friday night at the container. And just looking through our community response groups, we've had new groups develop in Otira. So that group is working in partnership with Kiwi Rail for their container to go on the rail station there, and also to leverage off the support that Kiwi Rail can provide in terms of comms and other facilities there. Lake Kanieri, this group has just come out of the AF8 talk at Kokatahi. So that's a group of 70 people. Most of them are in Christchurch or elsewhere, so they're just forming. And of course, we've got the Kokatahi Kowhidorani group who are just about to develop their structure next week. I think we're meeting with them around that. Existing groups are Kumara. Kumara group's very interesting. They want to become a community resilience group rather than a community response group. Ross, quite a small group and an area I haven't done a lot of work in. The Waitaha group, still a group that I haven't worked strongly with. Harihari has reformed and will be getting a container. The Whanaroa group, well organised. Friends and Fox, very strong community response groups with good structures. Bruce Bay, a very small community response group, but they were successful in the Resilience Fund with a very good grant, which is going to go towards their generator. Their hall will also be refurbished and become a welfare centre. And just trying to link that group in a little bit more with the Bruce Bay Marae and the Haast Okuru group, which has got the joint structure of having the main group at Haast and a secondary support group in Okuru. And there's just a quick look at our structure, which is an adapted sim structure. So all of our groups use this particular structure in their group. And just referencing that we've got rural communities, resilience to natural hazards in developed settings. So this is some really unique research which is happening here in Hauptika. It's around resilience. There's only been one other piece of research in the world done using this particular technique, which is called a scenario technique. And that was done in Hawaii. So I'm pretty sure that this research, when written up by the PhD candidate, is going to be well read. So that's one of our second workshops there, looking at resilience, and quite a broad group of people attended. So that was our second workshop, and I think there's another workshop happening with AF8 as a closing workshop. And that is me. I've got, if people wish, I've got the disaster resilience strategy, 3 main themes here. If you wish to take them again. And I'll just hand back over to Claire.
Thank you. Just to close off, the 2 points I'd like to make. The first is that we've also been successful at receiving some resilience funding from the National Emergency Management Agency around developing our resilience action plan. So what that means is we've been talking about a number of different areas for some time around having more resilience agencies across the region. We've been talking about things like having improved alternate comms, about having a natural hazard database, things around improved flood risk monitoring, aspects around fuel storage. So these are topics that we've been talking about for some time. So I'm really pleased that we're just at the point of signing a contract for a piece of work to help give legs to all of those projects, and perhaps others that I haven't talked about, so that we've got an actual clear pathway for how we get them up and moving along. So that's quite an exciting piece of work that I just wanted to let you know about today as well. And then just yes, and there's a number of other areas of activity as well. So I just want to finish up by saying thank you to the councillors for your support around the initiatives and the work that Lauren has been doing, but I also want to recognise how this feeds into a number of projects happening across the district council. So when we are here talking about our particular aspects, we really appreciate that they connect in with a lot of the work that's already happening. So I want to thank all of the council staff as well. And that's the end of our presentation. If there's any questions, we're happy to answer any.
Thank you, Lauren. Do you want to come up and we can question you both? Cross-examine you, interrogate you. Open it up for questions. Councillor Davidson, any questions?
You're on mute, Councillor Davidson.
It's good to see you, so.
Thank you.
All
No
good?
questions.
Thank you, Councillor Kennedy.
Oh, sorry, it just I didn't speak up earlier to disrupt the flow of the meeting. Just in terms of the membership of this committee, I don't think I currently am. I think it might have been an oversight, so we'll deal with that in the coming days, but I just won't speak.
No, you can speak.
Oh no, all good. Good work, girls.
Councillor Cogan.
No, great work you guys are doing throughout Westland. It's good to see now too that Lake Mary are coming on board. And Kokorai Kotaringi, I still have to question with them, won't they need 2 separate ones? Because there's a thing called a very long bridge out there that actually cuts off Kokorai from Kotaringi. And, you know, so I've always wondered as well, that really both areas need their own plans of resilience for an
Sure.
emergency.
You saw that Haast and Okuru
Yeah.
together, and that makes sense. They've got a big bridge too between them. But it's really important that we have one primary centre that's coordinating and a secondary support. So they work together, which is really important. But they obviously do have separate plans. In terms of the building, the Kokatahi Hall had work done on from the Provincial Growth Fund and is resilient. And it's also got the fire station next door, whereas the Kowhidangari Hall requires a lot of work to bring it up to Walkway standard, and the community is already working on that in terms of a lottery community facilities grant, which is about to be submitted.
Yeah, good, because they're going to have somewhere where they can go as well. No, awesome. Thanks, ladies.
Councillor Neil?
Deja vu.
Yes.
I feel like I've seen this before.
You said it's a safer community.
Yes.
Yeah. No, it's good, thank you. Interesting point, Jenny, and certainly other places as well, aren't there? Because actually there's the Kotaka River between, Kotaka and the south side, and it's a long way all the way down to Ross with the river in between. So I guess that's always going to happen. I would imagine helicopters will come and do quite a bit. I know in the past in France, helicopters have been popping people back and forth over the river pretty quickly. So yeah, no, it's good. I just think the containers are a fabulous project, and look forward to seeing more fill up. It's good.
Thank you very much. When we were down in Ross for our consultation evening recently, they did make mention that they would love one of those very attractive yellow boxes.
Yes.
So I'm not sure what the process is to get them a yellow box.
Definitely on my list.
Oh, cool.
They've got a wooden one made by Boy Scouts, so we just need to upgrade that. And Ross is a community I'd like to do some more work in, because I think there's lots of co-benefits we can get from Ross.
Cool. Yeah, no, they definitely just raised it at that meeting, so best you hear it rather than us.
Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks both of you for your time, effort and energy into civil defence, emergency management and natural hazards on the West Coast, and particularly Westland. Thank you. Someone prepared to move, please, that the Western Resilience Update presentation from Claire Brown, the Regional Manager of Civil Defence, Emergency Management and Natural Hazards from the West Coast Regional Council, be received. Councillor Cogan, seconded Councillor Neil. All those in favour?
Thanks very much, ladies.
Unanimously, thank you very much. Have a great evening. Great. From one awesome presentation to the next, we welcome Jackie Burden from the Western Cultural and Heritage Tourism Project to speak to her presentation. Good evening, Jackie.
Kia ora.
Welcome.
For the chair and councillors, thanks for the opportunity to present this project that we've been working on for quite a while. I prepared for you quite a full report with a lot of the planning work that we've done attached to that to really get that to the fore and out to the public. So hopefully what I'm going to present tonight, I'm just going to sort of informally highlight a few of the things in my report. And certainly there's a lot of attachments here, this later work that's gone in over the last few while. So quite good to get to this point. I wanted to begin tonight by acknowledging David Staverton. I'm sure David will be watching us very keenly. Worked closely with him on this, and unfortunately, just around this time last year, David obviously discovered he had cancer and has since passed away. So really acknowledge him. And David and I have given a considerable amount of our own time to this project as well too.
I just thank you, Jackie, and I think it's appropriate we just pause there and acknowledge David's contribution and mark that with a moment's silence. Thank you.
Right. So I'll just run through this very quickly. The foundation for this project goes back to the West Coast Economic Stimulus Package and the $200,000 that Heritage West Coast put in for the project that we've delivered. What we were looking at the time was probably a model for the region, North Westland, and looking at the whole development of cultural and heritage tourism. We've seen and watched through Heritage West Coast just the millions of dollars that was coming into our region and really not being elevated the way it could be. And so that's what this project was all about. We were in quite a different time when we launched this project. There was about 1 million visitors passing through this place. So obviously that's one of the challenges that has been confronted in the time we've been working on this. And I guess I mentioned the other challenge that hit it, obviously, was with what happened to David. We were looking at 3 pillars, really, when we put the project forward. One around the commercial business development, cultural tourism businesses, with the community development side of it. And we were also looking at the wider cultural and heritage environment, talking about things like CBD, obviously, in that wider environment. We first looked at a district-wide approach to this, and you'll see the large report that I've attached with this was the report that we prepared, and just as we were preparing it, PGF came along, so that report went forward as a district-wide application to the PGF that was unsuccessful. We then narrowed it down and worked on a scope between Hokitika and Ross, and worked on the projects that we've got contained within that report. So just looking at that, so I've just summarised and just presented one of the maps that we did. So we were really looking at the Hokitika CBD area. We were looking specifically at the Westland Industrial Heritage Park. We were looking at the Mahinapua area and the businesses within those, and we were looking at Ross as a destination and working particularly with the community centre, the Goldfields Community Centre, down at Ross. So that's how we narrowed the project down. So just looking now at some of the key outcomes from the project. So firstly, we obviously looked at the whole district-wide strategy. There's some valuable information in that report that we did. It began with a large amount of market research, and we went and looked within each of the individual communities at what the cultural and heritage tourism product was within that. This also aligned at the same time when Mahinapua and Makapio were developing their Maori economic strategy as well. So I think the two sort of go hand in hand and probably partner now with what's emerged as the Total Pathway project. So yeah, we were looking at the district-wide document that you'll see there. I'd make the comment that Patrick from Tourism Development West Coast Tourism has been using that document really as a foundation document in his destination planning and the work that he's doing. So thrilled about that. He obviously put forward the PGF application. And the other thing that came out of all the work that we've been doing was the Tony Whenua Landmark project on the West Coast. We visited Andrew Coleman at Heritage New Zealand and presented what we were doing, and he'd already done 2 regions as landmark projects, and so he decided on all the strategy work we'd done to have West Coast as the next area. And obviously from that body of work that was done independently, the committee set up, Hokitika was one of the landmarks that was chosen from that. So jumping into the Hokitika project, so started looking at what the wider picture projects were we've done, dovetailing down into the Hokitika projects. So obviously we had, at the time, we were looking at 1 million visitors through here and all from the Chinese. There was not a lot being done in the CBD and businesses to attract and I guess take the dollars off some of the Chinese visitors. I know Councillor Hogan, your business was one of the lead ones in that, and when we did the business setup, looked at setting up the Chinese business cluster, your support for that was really appreciated, and you were at that meeting where we pulled together probably between 8 and 12 businesses upstairs to try and pull that cluster together and work on the initial marketing work in that. Unfortunately, not too long after that meeting, COVID changed our landscape completely. So that actually had a major impact on a lot of the business development work that we were trying to work with in this cultural tourism project. The other success we had was, big success, was obviously the retention of the government building, the 22 million that went into there. I know when we invited Andrew Coleman down, and he said to us in the morning of the forum that we held here, he'd been up early and he said that Heritage New Zealand has to purchase that building. And I guess along with the support of other parties as well, and all that David did behind the scenes, we've seen the investment made in retaining that building. I've mentioned the Tone Whenua landmarks. We've also done quite a body of work around concept planning in the CBD precincts and related projects, and I've had discussions. So we've pulled together, you'll see in the documentation that I've given you, a number of maps and planning, and that really needs to dovetail into the work that we do with the owner and the planning department, so that will dovetail into the CBD planning, and we've talked about that. So we need to pull that one together as well. Talked about, and we've also developed the Heritage, Hokitika Heritage Walk. There is interpretation panels that have been funded to go around that walk as well too. So hopefully that will form another attraction and another business in itself around the Hokitika CBD. Obviously the restoration of the Custom House building, and David prepared the application for that and now sits with the council. We've done some initial work around marketing, really looking at Hokitika as a destination with the cultural heritage product that we've got, and assisting with Destination Hokitika in their brochures. We had a look with the museum at the luminaries to see if anything could be done in that space, and obviously that is difficult because there's a lot of work around, a lot of things tied up around the ownership of the name and title, and the museum has done quite a bit of work exploring that. I'll just put that here. So just looking now, I'll just touch on some of you've got these maps within the documentation that I've supplied. I think it's really important that sums up a lot of what a lot of the groups had planned for the CBD, and they're all projects that are being worked on around Hokitika area. And of course the upgrade of the walkway that I talked about. We photographed around that, a lot of things were run down and needed repairs, and hopefully at the end of the year, we've got Sue Aston and Paul Bradley preparing the interpretation panels. It was going to be David to go around that, so hopefully that will be really quite an attractive view and cycle trail around the town itself. We also, if you look through the documents that I attached, we've also got the Sense project, the beachfront project that the council is implementing, and the signage project that we did on that, which we already talked about tonight. Obviously that's been taken up by the council now and is in hand. So we've worked extensively with the Westland Industrial Heritage Park, and currently working on the finishing off the strategic plan. They have got a wonderful sign up there, and a lot of work, to me a very talented group of people in the work that they're doing up there. They've probably got a dozen projects on the way. The one that we initially went in and helped them with was the big engine shed. We did a bit of a sound and light show. That's advancing really well. We've also helped them with their planning around their entry building and what they were calling their lotto shed. And we've done the photo shoots and the video shoots all ready to help them with all the marketing work. A lot happening up at the industrial park. And we saw obviously at Queen's Wednesday weekend another key attraction open Hokitika in the miniature railway that they've got. There's a lot more that's formed from that. In terms of Mahinapua and Ross, we were working with the Go Wild business cluster which is looking at around 5 businesses. We were looking at that into the international market as cultural and heritage tourism product. We were looking at taking that to trends last year. We had signed all that up, and obviously COVID just put a damper on that. We developed up the Mahinapua Loop concept proposal. That still needs to be looked at and probably go forward under the cycle trail. And we also have assisted the West Coast Senate Waterways, Cindy and Gavin, what they're looking at doing on site there as well. In terms of Ross, we looked at and have worked with the information centre. We have actually gone to detailed design and the planning work for that new centre, and I've asked the Papa if they would help us cost that work. The documentation that I put in the back is an edited version that sticks mainly to the pictures and not all the detailed design drawings that come with that, but there's an extensive body of planning that's going to help really turn the eyesight from something that really does need an upgrade of the displays there into something much more modern. And I think being at the end of the cycle trail, there's the opportunity for a lot more to be cemented in that particular building. A lot more people and visitation through that. We also prepared the 7 Golden Gullies concept plan in the southern, through the goldfields on the southern end of Ross, really looking at that to help grow Ross as a destination at the end of the cycle trail, and that's now been embedded into the cycle trail long-term plan. And we actually started the body of work was looking at all of what's happening in Ross from that whole destination work with walks around the lake, what was happening with the Chinese gardens, and looking at an icon attraction photo opportunity for Ross as well too. And I guess out of it we really went and developed up the eyesight in the 7 Golden Gullies project. Looking at the funding, so we're on to the final drawdown now of the DWC funding. We've actually allocated all of that money. A lot of it is into supporting the applications that are sitting in with lotteries that are yet to happen. I'm not sure of the timeframe for the Custom House building that's been led by the council. Westland Industrial Heritage Park is well advanced with the big engine shed, and the interpretation panels are looking at a November completion date for those. Projects going forward, I've listed in the report I've provided you with a lot of the project work that needs to go forward. A lot of work we still got to do in the industrial park. Obviously, there's a lot happening around the CBD. With projects that can be picked up and finished off there. The Mahinapua Loop can sit within the cycle trail, and obviously it would be good to get the Ross Goldfields Heritage and Information Centre development completed. So how we take it forward, there's been a submission lodged to the council's long-term plan where we proposed, it was submitted between the industrial park and Heritage Hokitika, looking at a small fund to help with these projects on an annual basis in the long-term plan. So I guess I'll just put a little bit of a plug in for that because that will feed into a lot of these projects.
Just repeat that, sorry, for the councillors listening, they may not have picked up on that lobbying.
It would be great to put an extra north on the end, but I think everybody is very concerned with the financial situation. But certainly that actually helps provide seed funding for these projects. We're looking at meeting with DWC and talking with Dale and Patrick and hopefully Joe at what we've been doing and how we can take the project forward with additional funding. And we'll also, I put my wider chair of Heritage West Coast hat on, we are looking at approaching DWC for some seed funding to help us put into some capability funding that the Ministry of Culture and Heritage is going to have open for applications in November for capability building. And I guess a lot of the work that we've done has really been around that adding capabilities to some of these projects. And I guess hopefully what we've shown is the sort of potential to put a resource into cultural and heritage tourism, the sort of thing that can drop out of that. A completion goal, it's been talked about, Heritage 23 is being talked about. There are a number of significant anniversaries coming up, and Heritage 23 may well be an opportunity that we try and line up the completion of this and any other projects that have been happening for quite a period of time. And I do wonder if that ties into the DWC events funding. And I think one of the things we were talking about, and the other thing it could tie into too is the Planway Pathway project. So I guess looking at that as a possible goal, it's always good to have a completion date for all the things you're doing. And that event in that year may well be one that we see what we can line up with. And we talk about potentially a governance group that can take that body of work forward. And I think you've identified already tonight, you've just talked about workshops that you're going to pull together that look at everything that's happening in the sector. And I suggest that all of this does all fit together, and certainly commend you on looking at doing that and taking a lead for recognising the value of cultural and heritage tourism through our region, through our district and of course the region. So that really is my presentation.
Thanks, Jackie. Thank you very much for your presentation. Wonder, to make it useful, can you just go back to the one of the slides that were there around the projects? Might have been halfway through. Well, Jackie, sorry.
Yeah.
Keep flicking back. There was one that had
The implementation one.
had like Hookaticker, and then it had all the things around it. This one.
Oh, sorry.
This next
That
one.
one.
That one.
Mm-hmm.
Can you just talk us through those and
I can talk you through those.
just very brief, like if it's like Walkway from Pursuit Street, who's leading it, what's its current status, what's needed to get it finished?
I probably can't completely talk you through all of those
Okay.
at where they are now, because there are several components of those. The Walkway project, that's what we're looking at with the overall walkway around the town. The signal station replica.
Yep.
So that's one that Rob Daniel has picked up. That is one of several projects that David was really passionate about to have that done. And Rob is actually looking at, he's now got images of what the signal station looked like, and he's looking at advancing that. Again, these are the projects I think if we get the seed funding in, can help leverage other funding so we can complete these projects. There are a number of groups that have expressed interest, and I'm not completely sure what's happening with the Tambo, but I think that the group that those working on that need to, come together and look collectively at what happens with the Tambo, and I've documented down there the different parts of that project. The beachfront walkway, that was being led by Simon here at the council. When we wrote this here, there was nothing to show down there, and I think there's a huge body of work that's happened. So full of compliments for the council and Simon and the work that he's done there. The lifeboat project, I'm not completely up with that. I think that's a Heritage Hokitika project that has been built in. I think there are a number of organisations that have been looking at the Gibson Quay heritage area, and obviously the Custom House building, we've now got funding for that restoration of that project, and that sits with the council to lead. So I think what we need to do is pull together these groups, and as I say, building it in, if we pick 2023 as the year, we need to start getting together and looking at how we collectively get all these things to happen.
Okay. Just because some of these the council's clearly identified and like even makes mention of them in the LTP. Just not sure that all of them sit with council, but they need to be somewhere captured in our document.
Just through the chair, the Countess of Onslow Lifeboat, there's definitely a line, not lines at a
you don't have that
Heritage Hokitika project. The replica station, I talked with Rob Daniel, I think 2 weeks ago, or last week actually, at the LTP review. He's taking the lead on that one. In terms of I suppose the beachfront in general. Stage 2 of that concept planning for the beachfront is yet to be developed, but that's a piece of work we've got a budget for in the LTP. And I think the replica station is already earmarked for a certain location within that. I really believe that having that as almost a plaque for David Stapleton, you know, for his, and acknowledging the excellent work he's done in the past. Yeah, Tambo Shipwreck, there's a number of involved parties in this, with obviously the industrial park, and Simon Eyre is leading, bringing that back together. Custom House, once again, that's with Simon leading that in terms of with the Heritage Group, in terms of their funding. We've got a budget to complete that work. That's pretty well it. Oh, and one small Heritage have asked for another Gibson Quay walk in the near future with their Heritage Group, with council staff.
Sorry, another walk.
We annually do a walk with them.
Oh, what a physical walk. They don't want to have another walk later.
No,
Okay.
a physical walk and confirming. In terms of the lighting, we've actually ordered those lights for Heritage lights replacement, so that should be a project that will be executed very shortly.
Just through an answer to your question as well, this is what I see with working with Fiona, that this builds into the CBD plan, and I can see that within their plan itself, by the images of all this work completed, they will tuck into that planning work that's happening.
Okay, let's open it up for councillors' comments or questions. Councillor Coker.
Yeah, Jackie, I've just noted a few things down, but the first one that I just really want to highlight to you is I think you've undersold yourself when you say that there's been a few hours of work put into this. Because I took the time to read through this over the weekend, and there is a tremendous amount of hours that have gone into this work that you have presented to us. That but you know, for yourself and David Stapleton, I can absolutely congratulate you guys. The level of presentation as well, and the professionalism around how you have even set this out in here is like probably one of the best presentations I think I've ever come across. And there's just so much of it in there that I'm pleased we're talking about the whole linking thing, because there's like a wealth of knowledge that you've gathered in here. Like, it was even interesting, you know, right down to that, you know, the opportunity, that pie graph you did, you know, around how much longer visitors, you know, could stay. Like, that was fascinating reading, you know, and the around advertising and promotion. And it just makes me think, with a piece of work like you've clearly put into all of this, you know, like how do we get that out there? Like, I mean, do you go and do presentations? Like, I just feel like this group here is wasted on your present, like, and I'm not meaning that horribly, but do you know what I mean? Like, you know, like you should but like this should be going out, you know, because what a buzz from the presentation. Like, do you go out to all of the community groups throughout Westland? You know, should there be a public presentation even done on this? Because there's so much planning and thought and time gone into it that, I mean, there's no replication required. If anything, it's just a matter, as you've already started to address, finding the right people to either take the lead and then pass on, or work through to develop to complete. Yeah, I just think that this is a really vital document that leading the way forward, and something we need to consider, considering the long-term plan with council as well, around how, you know, this can kind of.
So some of the aspects within this presentation, as Jackie alluded to, were actually applied for the PGF as a total package of culture and heritage.
Yep.
When the $3 billion fund came out.
Well, thank God it
So,
did, yeah.
Unfortunately, it didn't get consensus support across the region. Hence, the Tsunami pathway was developed, which we fully endorse.
Yeah.
But there are projects within that, like the the Seven House, which has been picked up by New Zealand Heritage now. There's still work within there, like the Mahinapua Loop, which we have in our asset management plan for the cycleway and the 7 golden gullies, but they are a long way into the future, and it comes down to affordability for those projects for us. Yeah, so a lot of the work has actually been targeted to be done. A lot of work around the marketing CBD hasn't been targeted, so that requires a resource primarily to do.
But linking in with those groups, you know, to actually see it followed through as well. And just by speaking to us, you know, like what you've got, you know, down in this document here now just deserves to be, reaching community groups.
This is through the chair. Thank you for those comments. And our application to PGF was actually in and not accepted before the Pony Pathway discussions came up. And I know that I presented the lead presentation at the forum that considered what happened in cultural tourism. Pony Pathway project came out of, and it was really looking at the potential that we had here and this as a model to happen in the other districts as well too. So I don't think they could grasp the essence of what this project held within it, and actually to back it. We certainly had prior to that, and I guess the work that Heritage West Coast has done, told quite often in Wellington that the work we're doing has been some leading work in the country.
For sure.
I guess what we've done here has looked at the district and what the district asset is and what the communities. David at the time was also working as the community development person who had just finished in South Westland, so he'd already done a whole lot of planning with those communities, and we all know how extensive David's knowledge was as well. Total failure in terms of getting this information out there. Not total failure, but there is so much work in pulling all this together, and it's on quite a small resource of just a couple of us. And I think that what would be really good to see happen, and particularly now that you're looking at forming the group, is to actually put some legs behind the bits that have not been completed and collectively advocate for funding to come into this, to really, if it has to be done, to use it as a model for what could be done in other places across the coast and across New Zealand as well too. The really good thing would have been to still have the numbers of visitors passing through, because some of the business aspects of this that we were looking at developing, I mean, if we had have been able to work with businesses in Hokitika and some of the work we were doing at sort of opening and getting more of them involved in the Chinese market, if we had have been able to get the link around Mahinapua and that whole cultural tourism, that, you know, going ahead with that cluster of businesses, we would have been in a different position than we are today. But the foundation is absolutely still there to develop it, and I think probably that leadership group going forward and some advocacy. I know, you know, with Patrick using the document as a foundation document, I think that provides the opportunity or presents the opportunity for our presentation to Development West Coast for them to actually pick it up as a model and work with it. I look at the model that they're presenting and resourcing in the Auckland through tourism at the moment, and what we've been doing here just hasn't had the same high profile that that particular project has had. We haven't had the same level of advocacy behind what we're doing, and I do think this is a project that's, you know, on a par with it, almost a slightly different project. So, yeah, it's how much you can pluck off and do with the small resource that we've had to do it.
Well, I would certainly, like to think, I know from my personal perspective, that I think from sitting in the council seat, to be able to, in the way of support, for council to be able to support that project, with you looking for external funding, if in any way that we could possibly do that, to see more of this come to fruition. I know for one, I'd be certainly keen to support.
Just through the chair, we've approached a number of, I suppose, outlets previously. It really comes down to which ones we're going to target within. We've got a number of projects now within our own museum structure, which we're going to prioritise first to get that across the line. Yeah. And then obviously look at cherry pick the ones we want to target next. Yeah. And so it will require a whole transition program to be built around it. And Karina will lead that on behalf of council.
Yeah. I think council's an enabler, really, isn't it?
Yes.
And if council can be as enabling as possible to a plan, then a lot of that work can be done by other people, other parties. But council has to provide the scaffold, provide the support to enable. And if that happens, I'm sure a lot of this will be achieved. So take on board your comments, and there's some food for thought, and making cross-referencing to our very last submission that we'll have to consider tomorrow, which is the one Jackie referenced. There's all of these connections in terms of the LGP. So thanks, Jackie. Thanks, Jenny.
Sorry, just one other point through chair. So the Mahinapua project with the hoppers. So Fiona and myself are visiting, and Scott are visiting next week to see where they're at with their project.
Councillor Neil, anything from you? Any questions to Jackie?
No questions. Very thorough, thank you. And huge potential to be used in the future for funding opportunities. Appreciate it.
Councillor Davidson or Councillor Kennedy, any questions?
Yeah, just good report there, Jackie. The enhancing the recreation and heritage areas, it's a great move. We asked the question just recently why Hokitika has received so many visitors coming into the town and area, and the feedback that we got is it's a cool town, and so doing this enhancement, it's a good thing. So well done.
Thanks, Councillor. Councillor Kennedy.
Jackie, what kind of resources are you asking from the council in your submission?
In the submission that was put forward to the long-term plan?
Yeah.
Yeah, that all they asked for in that was actually, as I understand it, I can see the final document, but they're only asking for $20,000, which is not enough really to drive this project forward, but it was sort of, they were very reflective of the council's financial position, and it was enough, it would give a little bit of a leg up really, but I think much more is needed to take all this work forward. And I guess my comment would be with what we've seen where we were first put forward projects and told that there wasn't the millions there. I think if the project is good enough and the vision is there, you can develop it. But certainly, that answer your question, I think they only put forward $20,000 a year in the long-term plan.
Yep, that's cool. Thanks, Jackie.
Thank you so much for your presentation.
Jackie.
It's very timely. Thanks for your work, Jackie. And we look forward to seeing 2023 when we'll all be completed. Okay. Someone prepared to move that the Westland Cultural and Heritage Tourism Project presentation from Jackie Gurdon, Project Manager from Gurdon Consulting Limited, be received. Yep. Move Councillor Neil, seconded Councillor Cogan. All those in favour? Aye. And we'll acknowledge, please, the contribution by David Stable to the above work, and have that reflected in the minutes, as well as our acknowledgements for a moment silence. Thanks, Jackie, and thanks, David, for his work on it. Right, we now move through to the staff reports, agenda item 7, and the proposed Marks Road Haast bike track. And I welcome Tisdale, the Essex. Oh, okay, sorry. That's you, Michael. Sorry, Scott. Thought Michael had aged a few years.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. Good evening, Joe. Good evening, councillors. I'd like to take the report as read, please, and I'd like to take any questions or comments.
Thank you very much. We will open it up for questions and comments, starting with our Southern Ward councillor, Councillor Kennedy. Have you got anything in relation to this matter? No, you're muted. You're good.
You should be saying something.
Yeah. Can you hear us?
No, fine, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Davidson.
No, all good, thank you.
Councillor Cogan.
No, I'm happy, I'm more than happy to go with the recommendation.
Councillor Neal.
Yeah, happy to go with it. Just one question.
Yep.
The size of it, is it the same size pretty much as the one at Ross School? It seems quite a small.
It is a small one.
Space.
It's not a full BMX track, but it is a similar size to one of those.
Similar size as well. Yeah, no, very happy with it. Thank you.
A couple of questions from me, probably just clarification. The Ross one is actually a sealed pump track, so it's asphalt, and this talks about gravel, but it does make comparison to the two. Just to clarify, the one proposed for Haast, for Marks Road Reserve, is a gravel pump track.
Yes.
Okay. My second question, thank you. My second question is around the MOU. Who will it actually be developed with?
Through Joe, it will be developed with us. So
And the other party being who? Because it just says the Haast community.
it will be the Haast community.
What is that though legally? What is that?
Representation. So the link to council is the Haast community as a promotions group.
Okay, so maybe we just have that reflected then in the recommendations that we develop a memorandum of understanding between council and the Haast promotions group. And so I take it then, with that clarified, that the Haast promotions group have endorsed and recommended this project. Yeah, okay, cool. That's all tickety-boo. Sounds great. Thank you so much for the report. So I'm prepared to move with those amendments, namely the clarification of the council and the Haast promotions group, and that we move those recommendations. Moved Councillor Cogan, seconded Councillor Neal. Those against? The resolution's carried. Thank you very much, Scott, Michael. That's great. Moving through now to the Puketuka Museum update, and welcome Tom Kiranaina, sorry, don't know what, but else to speak to the report, Museum Director.
Tēnā koutou e wairanga tira mai tēnei tō, hei tukuna ki mihi ki a puanga rātou kua whiturangi te te tau o te matara ki roke. Tēnā tātou katoa. I just have an update to add to the report that has developed over the last few days, and that's in regards to the gifted BBC2 Luminaries collection. This will be processed through the museum's new acquisitions, operations work stream, which also includes a condition analysis and composition analysis. So this work will begin within the next 2 weeks. As well as that addition to the update report, I'd like to move the report as read. Are there any pathway? Are there any questions?
Any questions in relation to the update from the Puketuka Museum Director? We've taken it as read. Thanks for the additional update on the luminaries. Any questions?
No, but welcome to Puketuka. Haven't met you yet, but lovely to see you here. And yeah, that's exciting about the libraries been coming through. Yeah, cool. Thank you. Thank you.
None either. I think you're doing a fabulous job having to come on board. There's certainly a number of projects talking about getting thrown in at the deep end to a degree. But I can talk on, from the Matariki side of things. You've been very helpful. Thank you so much.
I'm prepared to move that the Hokitika Museum current projects update report to the Community Development Committee dated 14th of June 2021 be received. Councillor Neal, second Councillor Cogan, all those in favour? Aye. Those against? The resolution is carried. Kia ora, thank you very much. Te Araha Ko, on behalf of Natasha Morris, the Library Manager, will present the next report. Welcome to TFC. To speak to the Western District Library update.
Good evening all. Once again, we will take the report as read, and in the absence of the library manager, if there are any questions I can ask them, I will attempt to.
Just through the chair, the museum and the library standing report is coming forward to this committee.
That's cool.
What book was checked out most frequently this month, TC?
I'm not sure because I don't participate.
It is nice just to have an overview. I'm sure staff are much closer to it than us, but thank you.
I think even just to highlight from the library just how many resources are actually available through the library now with this and with the expertise of their staffing that they've actually got. Yeah, I mean, gone are the days of it just being a library.
Oh yeah, and an old woman with white hair sort of yelling at it. Shh. Yeah,
But they're really very proactive at getting themselves and getting the communities connected with them in lots of different ways.
Further to Councillor Cogan's comments, the two externally funded positions, irrespective of the people, those roles seem to be adding a lot of depth to community in terms of engagement and outreach. I mean, I attended one of Mike's business breakfasts on Wednesday morning last week. We've worked, I've seen and been associated with the community engagement side of the library now. So I'm just, where does that fit in terms of the long-term plan, ensuring that those roles exist in the future?
So it has been highlighted in the annual plan as a possibility. In terms of the first 2 years, they are funded through the National Library, Aotearoa Library Service. So it'll become a discussion in basically leading to year 3 of the plan as to whether we then want to bring those positions internal for funding. But that would only be conditional if the national funding wasn't rolled over again. So it's more about the chicken and egg thing. If national funding continues, then obviously we'll go to first port of call, but not then what is planned to.
The concept behind the digital room, that room at the back of the library, is really good, but it's very inaccessible. So I hope from Pakiwaitara we've got some concepts for a accessible room that has a door that you can put a key in easily and unlock, not have to try and break through like Fort Knox.
So both the library manager and museum director are working in terms of spaces that would be required in the consolidated space, and there's a whole lot of other things too that they'd either like to expand on or incorporate into spaces as well. So not wanting to preempt, obviously waiting for the outcome for submission hearings for the LTP and then move to the next phase.
Certainly at Safe Communities, the library updates are always very well received, and it's impressive how many links they've got into community and how they link into the other people around the table and talking.
Just through the chair, I think if you talk about staff in general, there's the base core of deliverables that council can supply. If you, in any part of the organisation, if you have additional resources, it's that over delivery that we can actually do. Some areas I'm pretty sure we're slightly under-resourced, even with the LTP budget, to actually deliver a service over and above. So sometimes we're just scrambling just to do the day-to-day stuff. So, you know, if we had more staff, we would actually deliver a higher quality of service across the board. In some areas we've got full staff and they're going really well, but some areas are still deficient.
I went along to the same digital breakfast that he's actually a doctor, isn't he? I can't think of his name. But oh my God, you know, like an hour with him was just not long enough. The resources and the knowledge that man has, not just working for the right library that he could, like, you know, potentially extend to supporting, you know, our business community on the coast is massive. Yeah, we could charge them out to organisations like Development West Coast, and they can help subsidise us keeping them on here.
So should council decide to proceed with the Paki Waitara budget allocations following the LTP hearings, I think it would be really useful to have a standing report on not only museum, library, but also the development of Paki Waitara as well. Because we meet kind of 3 monthly, and just FYI how that's tracking. Not because we have oversight, but just out of interest.
I suppose there's multiple work streams inside that project. You've obviously got the physical aspects of a project and deliverables along those sides. Then you've got the development design of what goes inside.
That's the key work.
But also what we're trying to achieve in terms of the displays and how we're linking all the cultural aspects to it.
Yeah.
So there's a number of various components. We don't want to over-produce multiple different types of reports.
No, I think the CapEx work in the development and the refurbishment of the building sits with the capital project tenders committee. I think best sits with them. But for us, it's actually, well, what's actually in the building, and how does it connect with all the things this community development committee actually have oversight of? Because that's actually the critical work stream, isn't it? And it's the more unclear work stream at the moment. So it's got to go through development.
I suppose it both go hand in hand, because the design of the internals and its construction needs to link with what our outcomes are meant to be for the cultural or the display side of it. Experience.
And what we decide on from submissions from the LTP.
Yeah, that's right.
Is that a smile, Simon?
No comment.
Please pass on Te Araha and your capacity as group manager to the museum and to the library staff. Thanks for not only this report, but their ongoing work that they do for us and residents and ratepayers. Thank you. Right, goes to reports. Just clarify, I didn't actually ask to remove yet move the 2 resolutions as well. We did do the Westland District Library Current Projects Update Report dated the 14th of June 2021 be received. Councillor Neil and Councillor Cogan, those against? The resolution is carried. Thank you very much. Sure done. We are at the end of the agenda. Thank you so much for your engagement, the discussion, the kōrero, the the questions, because it is very rich discussion and it leads hopefully to better development of our community. Thanks to those people that have tuned in. Sorry,
Mr. Chair, just before we go, am I doing an update on the 3 Mile Hall?
Oh, sorry, Jenny, didn't get on the agenda. So we'll circulate that as, if you will. Yeah, as a resource map. So we'll circulate that to the committee.
I mean, it pretty much, you know, I mean, what I provided you.
Yeah, it's not on the agenda today, so
it's okay.
Thanks for tuning in, those people watching for Audit New Zealand or the Ombudsman or whoever else watches these interesting recordings. And we'll declare the meeting closed at 7:09 p.m.
Thank you, councillor.
Thank you, guys.
Kia ora. Full recording stop, live stream stop.